Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service in Hernando County, Florida. And back here with me today is my regular co-host, Lily Browning. Good morning, Lily. How are you?
I'm just great, Bill. How are you?
I'm good. We were talking before we started this morning about how both of us were barely able to survive that hurricane that came by. Which
Well,
is really nothing to laugh about. I mean, some people did sustain some damage, and you never know if you're going to be the one whose tree falls down or a tornado spins up down at the end of your street, something like that. But I know for me, other than lots and lots and lots of rain, it really wasn't anything.
no, and this time it wasn't, and probably 9 out of 10 times it won't be any big deal, but it's that 10th time we need to prepare for. You know, People who have been through Andrew or Francis or Charlie, or even most recently Michael up in the Panhandle. Um, if Buddy shows up, he may know more about that. They went through some pretty rough times. So Elsa wasn't that big of a deal. And we knew she wasn't going to be. We knew she was going to stay tropical storm, barely hurricane. It's just kind of good practice. And you and I threw together a last minute presentation on storms and trees, which you can find on my Facebook page. Did you share it, Bill?
Let me see if I have your Facebook page here. I don't have a banner for yours, but you know what? It's on our Facebook page also.
Okay. So if this Elsa passing through made you think, oh, I better have somebody look at these trees, or I better figure out what's going on with the tree situation in my yard, watch our program. We'll give you some pretty good tips about trees that people from the University of Florida studied good morning, buddy, several different hurricanes that were major hurricanes over the past 30 years, really. And they studied trees, and we have a list of the ones that are most wind resistant, the ones with low to medium, and the ones that did terrible during these storms. And we also talk about what to look for when you should have an arborist come out, which is pretty much once a year, really. Your tree should be on a maintenance schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So
They do require a little bit of thought, and I think that the two most dangerous trees are the ones that are totally ignored. And the research findings that I found most interesting is they found that the harder the wind blows, the more trees that blow over.
okay, that was their first finding. It gets more
Yeah.
interesting after that.
So it's a proven fact now. Maybe before we just kind of assume that, but it is a fact.
But also, they tell you certain trees may defoliate naturally during a storm.
Mm-hmm.
So don't freak out about that. That doesn't mean they're dead. That's their way of surviving. If it's a big, big hurricane, that's a lot of friction and resistance. Yeah, thank you. I was trying to think of a more scientific word that those leaves create. So it says, fine, take my leaves. And then the wind can blow through the branches. Doesn't mean the tree won't regenerate. So some of the, wait and see kind of thing. And we were talking about wrong tree in the wrong place. And the difference between urban trees, our urban forest, which all of us, not many of us live out in the middle of acres and acres and acres and acres of woodlands, where the trees are basically free to act naturally and, fall, not fall, do their thing. When we have them around us, they have a shorter lifespan and they are subjected to a lot of stresses. So we do what we can to ensure they, live as good long lives and aren't hazards to us.
Mm-hmm.
But the main point is trees can be a hassle during storms, but they are necessary to life. We need trees. Don't give up on trees. So And they also provide storm mitigation. The one tree that falls on your house you might not feel that way, but the urban forest and a whole lot of trees actually do mitigate winds from coming to your house.
Sure, they do a lot of different things. They moderate temperatures. They help with water flow, by slowing water flow, slowing erosion. They take up a lot of fertilizer that's moved beyond your grass roots that would be heading towards the aquifer. The trees catch that fertilizer and take it up. Mm-hmm. So that's very important. But you do need to don't put them in a spot in your yard where as they grow, they're going to become dangerous. I remember you and I went and looked at a new home a while back in a neighborhood, and it was new home construction. The people had just moved in. And this wasn't a 0 lot line. This is a literally negative lot line. One of the newer, I don't know what size lot it's on, but it's teeny tiny little front yard and tiny backyard. You can stand on one property line and spit and hit the other property line. And in their front yard, they had squeezed in an oak tree, a magnolia, and something else, another large tree. And they're only 6 feet tall. So obviously they fit and they look good. But what's the mature height of a magnolia tree?
Oh, yeah. 100.
A lot more than 6 feet. How about an oak tree? A lot more. So I'm thinking, that's only, 10 years down the road, their front yard is going to be stuffed full of trees, and then they're going to have to pay to get them removed, which can be very expensive, or it's going to be dangerous. And if they're too close to a sidewalk, they may pop up the sidewalk. Repouring concrete is expensive, and all that falls on the homeowner, and it's all because of just really, really poor planning. So I'm not sure who came up with that bright idea of let's stuff some trees that get really huge in this front yard to look good for a year or two, and then after that we don't care what happens to them. And the homeowner thinks this looks beautiful, but 10 years down the road, all of a sudden they're very, very upset and their bank account's being drained.
Right. Even small trees can be a problem down the line in very, very small lots. I think I told you last October when I was in Pennsylvania, my daughter had a Japanese maple, but it was put in a extremely small area. It was dealing with house, sidewalk, parking lot, and then poor tree. And I sent you a picture of it, and also Jim Mull in Pasco County. It was just hemorrhaging sap. It was in very, very bad shape, had a root rot, obviously. And so, I suggested she have it removed. Even though it wasn't very big, it could have taken some power lines down or damaged her porch or something. But even smallish trees, if they're not in the right space, that tree probably had been there maybe 10 years or so. And it just, it was suffering. So
yeah, even some of our hollies get too large, even though they are small, on the small side trees. If it's in the wrong spot, they'll eventually run out of space and become a problem. And then of course oaks, if you put in an oak tree, don't think about, well, it's only 6 feet tall right now, because it's not going to stay that tall. It's going to eventually get big. It's going to take a lot of space, so you need to keep that in mind when you pick a spot for it.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll do a program. I mean, we just did it the other day, and you can go watch it. It'll be on YouTube soon, I'm sure. Our government broadcasting fellow, John, he works great putting our shows on YouTube, but you have to consider he was pretty busy the past few days. Even though we didn't have a major storm, there was still a lot the public information office was, very busy 24/7.
Yeah.
Keeping the public calm. So when he has a chance, he'll get that up on YouTube as well. It's called Tremendous Storm Prep. But I think in August, probably mid-August, I'm going to do my just trees, marvelous trees. which we really get into. Then you're at the nursery, what to look for in a baby tree, the different grades of Florida trees, what you want to find, so that you can grow the strongest, most, a tree that's going to last well in your landscape. I touch on this in that program. We all love trees with character. I just bought the lot beside me because there was a huge old sand live oak with a lot of character. Also, so no one else can buy that lot, but and so that because that tree would have came down, they would have taken it down, and so it's kind of far away. But if you have just a small lot, character is not exactly what you need for that small lot. You need something that's going to be healthy within the space that you give it.
Exactly, and that starts very early on when you're out at the nursery looking for a tree. You want to pick a healthy tree, a straight tree. When small trees start to develop, co-dominant leaders, that second main branch, you need to snip it off. And if you do it when they're 6 feet tall, it just takes a pair of hand clippers. Mm-hmm. If you wait 25 years and now you have a huge, dangerous branch that's 2 feet across, it costs $1,000 to get it removed, and the tree may die in the process. So you need to train those trees starting young and put a little bit of time and effort and thought into it, and that way you can avoid a lot of time and effort and expense down the road.
Mm-hmm. Cindy, all they would have to do is promise to plant some other kind of trees. If they could get someone to say, well, this will be a hazard if we build a house here and in the middle of the lot, and they say, oh, we'll plant other trees, they would probably get permission.
Yes, Cindy has a question. She thought the oak trees were protected.
Yeah.
That's kind of a difficult question to answer. The laws have been changing on that about under what circumstances you can cut down trees, who has to give permission or not. An awful lot of the rights are now back on the property owner. In some jurisdictions, you have to get code enforcement or some other department to look at them and actually give you a permit saying that you can.
Mm-hmm. But they will, if it's a hazard to human habitation, then they most likely will give you that permission. And the tree I saved, I had to buy 2 lots. It's a very expensive tree that I saved. Is a sand live oak, and I don't know whether they're on the protected list or not. It's not a southern live oak. So, but it's cool. I'll have to show you a picture. Not next week, I won't be here, but the following week.
Yeah, and it's really difficult. I know people have to go through special training and get a specialized license from the ISA, the International Society of Arboriculture, to do tree safety inspections. And you could look at a huge, beautiful old oak tree in front of the library downtown, mm-hmm. and maybe it looks great to you, but if you inspect it and let's say it's a laurel oak or a water oak, a lot of times they have a lot of rot inside the main trunks. And you could tell from tapping on it with a rubber mallet if there's rot inside or not. It's really, really difficult to determine because you can't cut the branch off, take a look at it, and stick the branch back on. You're trying to figure out what is inside this huge tree branch or tree trunk, what is going on in there, and it's very difficult. So it's very difficult. I know that nobody can give a 100% guarantee any tree is 100% safe and will not blow down or break or cause a problem.
And, they're real careful with how they word those letters because it's a litigious society. So they're very careful.
A lot of liability in there.
Right. And people attach a lot of emotion to big old trees because something inside of us wants these big old trees to outlast us. Even if they're already 80 years old, we want them to be eternal trees, and all living things have a lifespan. And urban trees are subjected to so many stresses, like you mentioned, the ones at the library, the ones in front of the courthouse. It's amazing that they're doing as well as they are, considering they're surrounded by asphalt and cement and pollution from cars and, all of that. So they're not going to live as long as a live oak that's out in the middle of a pasture or in the forest. That's just the way it is.
Exactly. And then especially with the very large oaks in many downtown areas, it gets to a point where they start dropping a number of branches. It becomes dangerous. Then, cities and counties will look at it and start removing trees, and everybody gets upset because they are very attractive. Mm-hmm. So it's a very difficult situation to come to a decision that's going to make everybody happy.
Right. But all living things have a lifespan, so.
Yeah. And I know some people look at, I know in downtown Brooksville, I was told years ago that some of those very large old trees, people look at them and they think, oh, that must be a couple hundred years old. And I was told by a local arborist, Ken Morgan, nah, they're maybe 50 years old.
Yeah, or maybe a little older. I think I saw pictures like from the 30s of the courthouse when those trees were small, that they had just been planted there. They were maybe 6 to 8 feet tall. So, yeah. They're about that old, but they're not hundreds of years old. Not saying none of the trees in Brooksville were used for what they are rumored to have been used for, but probably not those particular trees in the front,
And people forget that applies to all the different plants in your landscape. When it comes to hedge bushes, boxwoods, viburnums, ligustrums, things like that, they all have a lifespan. And believe it or not, hedge bushes, their lifespan, I've been told, is 10 to 20 years. So I'll talk to somebody and they say, my hedges one by one are starting to die. I say, well, how old are they? Say, we've lived here for over 20 years and they came with the house. It's like, they're growing in a tough spot, between too much water, too little water, pests, diseases, this and that. They're not going to live forever. Eventually, you need to kind of plan on them declining. And at that point, the rest of them probably need to be pulled out and you could switch to something else. You could replant with what you had, as long as what you had didn't die from a disease. Mm-hmm. And of course, we can help you, give you ideas and suggestions. We have the Florida Friendly Landscape book, the plant guide with all the different Florida friendly plants that do well in Florida. So whatever part of Florida you're in, there's plants in there for you that are going to do well. So the day is probably going to come eventually where you're going to have to swap out some of that landscape material, even if it isn't dead yet, because it will be. So Cindy asks, why is it that the live oak is so protected? Live oaks are native.
Oh yeah, they are native because they're a native majestic tree, and they can, they're beautiful and they can have a fairly long lifespan. I don't know exactly, how the lobbying process went, but I think just because it is a beautiful, long-lasting, what they call a majestic tree, and I love live oaks. They're one of my favorite things on earth, but also we have to remember, like that little lot, with 0 lot lines and things, that's not the place for a live oak. It's not going to have a happy life, and neither are you, with it. Mm-hmm. Yes,
it'll look fine for a number of years, but it will eventually outgrow the amount of space.
Mm-hmm. And yes, Corey points out that many are actually sand live oaks. I know mine is. My nephew-in-law, who's a landscaper, declared it as such, but I kind of knew that because of where I live in the sand hills of the Royal Highlands. And also the leaves of live oaks are cupped. They look like little canoes. And the sand live oaks, you can tell they're more deeply veined on the inside and just a little bit pubescent. They have some hairs there, whereas the southern live oaks are pretty smooth in there. But both can be gorgeous trees.
As a general rule, they're very durable, healthy trees. Once again, if you put some time and effort into, keeping on top of them and having them checked and pruning them as needed to keep them safe.
And what we're going to do is when my husband gets all the little brush cleared away, and we are going to have an arborist come out and evaluate the tree, tell us, what we should do to help it live as long as it possibly can.
You're not going to send them up the ladder?
Send my husband up the ladder? I don't think he wants to go up there.
That can be very dangerous. You need to know what you're doing to be up there climbing around in trees.
Yes.
And I have sat there.
Our arborist friend doesn't even go up there anymore. He sends his young guys up there.
I've watched our neighbors get major tree work done. And to see some of the guys up there, they use a lot of safety equipment. They always have safety ropes on. They know what they're doing, and they can be pretty amazing. They're pretty good at it. They're, jumping around and, clipping that little chainsaw to your belt. I wouldn't do it. My tree climbing days ended a long time ago.
How, Dr. Lester, would someone find an arborist in our area?
I'm glad you asked that. That's very easy to do. There is an organization that tests and licenses arborists. It's called the ISA, or International Society of Arboriculture. Kind of a hard word to say, but it's the International Arborist Society. And
your computer will tell you it's not a word each time you write it. It will give you the red squiggly line under it.
Yes, so if you Google and go to the main ISA website, they do have a search section where you can put in your zip code, and it tells you all the people nearby who are certified and licensed. And many of them either own or work for tree services, and you can give them a call and ask them to come out, for starters, just to look at your tree. And if you think you have a problem, they can tell you if you do or you don't. If you have a huge oak tree and you haven't had anything done to it in a number of years, they can look at it and tell you, it's fine, or a few branches need to be removed, or you need to do this or that. They're the experts, and they do it day in and day out, and they can tell you what needs to be done to your tree to either make it safe again or keep it safe. And when the next hurricane comes and it's out in the Gulf of Mexico fixing to make landfall, that is not the best time to be calling them.
No, call
they
them
don't
now.
want to climb your tree in 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Call them now, so that before the next storm starts brewing out there, you can make an informed, logical decision about what to do about your trees. Pin oak trees, they are different. Yep. Other than the squirrels.
Yes, they are.
We don't have pin oak trees here. They may in North Florida.
I think they do. Somebody gave me a baggie full of leaves and acorns from a pin oak because I held on to it, and the problem was there were galls on the leaves.
Yeah.
And the wasp hatched out of the galls that I actually have in my collection. So pin oaks are very, very rare here, although they may be a few in Florida. We have
probably like in very wet areas or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it? Black oaks or blackjack oaks?
Blackjack oaks or turkey oaks, they're the same.
Yeah. We have technically a lot of different oaks here, but some of them are very few and far between. You don't see an awful lot.
And the other thing about oaks, which we're not mentioning, is that they are not all that monogamous. So an oak, may breed with indiscriminately as long as it's an oak, and so then you might have something in your yard that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's a whole combination of different oaks. And of course, Teresa. It gives us
Teresa's on here today. Good morning, Teresa.
She gives us the easy website to find an arborist, treesaregood.org. That will take you to the same ISA website, but that's easier to remember, treesaregood.org.
And they have a lot of great information on trees and picking trees and how to keep them healthy, where to plant them in your yard, where to not plant them in your yard. I see a lot of people who plant them in the wrong place. I've been to subdivisions where they put oak trees maybe 8 inches back from the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10 years down the road, people are calling me up going, my sidewalks are popping up. Why? You put an oak tree next to it and it grew. That happens.
Then you have wavy sidewalks. Yes.
And then that gets very expensive to fix. And you know who ends up having to pay for that?
Well, the taxpayers, yeah, if it's a street sidewalk, usually.
Or a lot of times in the subdivision, it's the homeowners in the end.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, Sid has information for us. They're both taxonomically the same. Or at least, sometimes they change their mind about those things. Sand live oak.
Yeah, they're different subspecies. So they're both live oaks, just slightly different subspecies.
Yeah, and the one that I have has adapted to the sandhill areas, whereas probably the ones in downtown Brooksville are more used to the more clay-like soil.
And then when you throw genetic variation in on top of that,
I know that you can have
a very large live oak, and if you collect the acorns from it, which is going to be buckets of acorns potentially, and plant all of them, they'll all come up and they'll all be oak trees, but they'll all be very slightly different because of genetic variation.
Genetic variation. That's a lot nicer than what I was trying to say, that they breed indiscriminately.
Sure. Well, the oak trees are promiscuous, so I guess we can say that, this is a family show, but it's scientifically correct also. Yes. So there is a lot of genetic variation.
And that's a survival tactic.
Exactly. Well, for all plants and for everything, if there's a certain amount of genetic variation, that increases their chances of survival. And if things get really wet, some are going to do well, other ones don't. If it gets really dry, and changing conditions and everything else. So unless you're taking clones or cuttings from one oak tree, you can go out there and every oak tree, it's just like your kids. They're all a little bit different. And some of them are very different.
And I mean, what you said is not out of this range. That's what they do at the nurseries, is make the clones of the best product of tree with that central trunk, good form, so that they're selling, the same tree basically all the time that they know is a good performer. So.
Yes, so for anybody who has an oak tree and you have little tiny baby oaks that have popped up in your yard, maybe you allowed them to grow, you need to take a hard look at where it's growing. If it's growing right next to your house or some other place where you don't want it, you may need to either try to move it or pull it up. But keep in mind that they're all going to be a little bit different. They're all unique.
Just like your children, like we said.
Yep, just like your grandchildren, right? They're all different.
They are all different. Got a whole crop of them. They're all different.
Okay, guys, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and please feel free to put them in the chat there.
Anything about storm preparation for the next time, which might be more of a big deal than Elsa was. I guess she gets, more angry with blizzards than her first time trying a tropical storm. So. I think Sid has sent me an email, something about trees. Maybe I'll forward it to you. Oh, no, it's just the same thing that she told us. So the same information that she gave us.
And the funny thing is, because I deal with plants and insects and a lot of different things, the specialists are always either lumping or splitting.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it when they change names and they change family names, the species names, because now you have to memorize a new name.
Right.
They're always, and now with DNA testing, when you look at the genetics of things, all of a sudden, things that you thought were very closely related because they look alike aren't, and other things that don't look alike, when you look at the genes, are very closely related. So it's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm. You know I'm not going to be here next week, right, Dr. Lester?
Oh, yeah, you're going to be on vacation again, aren't you?
Yeah, yes. And there's a retired forest specialist who may wish to join you in the next week. Who has great information about trees and all sorts of things. So maybe you can talk to her about that.
Sure, Sid, if you want to join and, help me co-host, or we'll talk a little bit more about oak trees or any other kind of trees you want to talk about, get a hold of me and I'll send you a link. Having somebody log on here and join in is surprisingly easy.
Yes.
This is a very, very easy and fun platform to use. I always tell people when they're going to be on for the first time, they're always nervous about, well, what do I do? What do I click on? I'll send you a link, click on it, you come in, you'll figure it out. And I think everybody has, haven't they?
Yeah, and when we're done, they always go, well, that was fun.
Yeah, that was easy.
It was easy. We're just chatting. Mm-hmm. That's all.
You do need a camera and a microphone, but that's really all you need. So,
well, maybe sometime we'll catch you, and maybe you can do it in my office or something. So,
yeah, we're here every week. So, I like to mix it up. I like to have different people on.
Yep.
I'll need to be creative and find somebody to join me next week. Although last week I was here by myself, just got a lot of questions, and you're going through the questions. You look at the time, it's like, oh my gosh, we've been here for an hour, and time flies.
And I have found a new side hustle for Dr. Lester, because I worked from home for a year, and so we did these classes to get these clinics and these classes just like we do now. But my two little tiny pound co-workers got used to the sound of his voice. So while I am going to be away, my daughter's going to be watching them. And she said, well, I work all day too. What am I, and I said, well, just put them in your daughter's room and put Bill and I on a loop at these plant clinics, or even some of our classes, and they will calm right down. So they're so used to hearing his voice. He's the dog whisperer. So, that's something new you can try at home. If your dogs are feeling anxious or something, put on some of Bill's classes. He calms them right down.
So are you saying that our clinics put people to sleep?
No, just dogs.
Okay, I can live with that.
Yes. And all of our dogs could probably teach these classes by now.
Well, if you're ever interested in what other kind of classes we do have coming up, if you just go to www.hernandoextension.com, that has a full listing of all of my upcoming classes, all of Lily's, all of ours, everybody else in the office. We have a sea grant agent who is our marine biologist, Brittany, who has classes, and she just recently had her yearly scalloping ones, because we are in scalloping season right now, aren't we?
Yep. And she has scheduled the coastal cleanup here in Hernando County as well for September.
I saw that just the other day. She picked a date for the coastal cleanup. So that will be on there also. Anything that we make a Facebook event for gets fed into hernandoextension.com. And you don't have to have a Facebook account or anything else. Everybody can go there and click on it and see everything that we have coming up. And if you ever have a question, need to get in contact with our office, there's the phone number. If you call, there's a 99% chance that Teresa will answer the phone, and she's more than happy to help you figure out what your problem is and come up with a solution. Otherwise, she'll pass it on to me. Or
landscape problem. Landscape problem. You might want to narrow that down.
Oh no, we get all kinds of questions at the office, and some of them we get the occasional wrong numbers. We have people who are really, hi, I'd like to get a permit to get a new roof.
Yeah.
Don't do that, but we can give you a phone number for who does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you answer wildlife questions in the landscape. What kind of snake is this? Teresa is a Wonder Woman, and one of the amazing things she does is she's a beekeeper. So there's questions pertaining to that she can answer.
Mm-hmm. And when we get questions from people who either have or want to start a small farm, we do have a multi-county agent, Matt Smith, that we will put you into contact with. If you have a pasture or livestock, farm animals, horses, things like that, we have a multi-county agent, Laura, who will put you in contact with because she knows a lot more about that than I do. If you're growing Bahia for a front lawn, I can help you with that. If you're growing Bahia for a pasture, she can help you with that because it is different. Nobody's out there ideally eating your front lawn. But if you have a pasture, somebody's out there eating it, and you need to make sure what you're doing is safe for them.
I have bunnies and the tortoise eating my front lawn.
So do I.
Yeah.
I have a gopher tortoise that comes by, and he'll look at a great big weed and pull it up and chew it up. And I have rabbits. My rabbits come and go. Sometimes I'll have a lot of rabbits at night in the front lawn. Other times it'll be months and I don't see any rabbits at all. So
I think that has to do with the coyote population too.
Probably, but I have never seen a coyote at this house. But our last house was maybe a mile and a half away, and I saw them all the time over there.
We're closer to the golf course. They tend to
our dogs would just love to see a coyote in the backyard. Like I joke, I probably have to be paying for stitches at the 24-hour vet, but they'd win.
Mine wouldn't. Mine would be snacks. We have a question there from Sharon about Epsom salts.
Okay, Sharon asks about uses of Epsom salts in the garden. Epsom salts are pure Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate. There's a lot of Epsom salts you can get that have fragrances and other things in it, and they're designed for putting in your bathtub, and it smells like lavender and helps you relax, and that's fine, but you don't want to use them out in your yard. But you can, if your soil is deficient in magnesium, Epsom salts are a good fast release form of magnesium. Magnesium is not a pollutant, so you don't have to worry about polluting groundwater or Weeki-Wachee Springs or the Gulf of Mexico or anything. Magnesium is safe. Generally, most people in Hernando County, when I look at their soil tests, because one thing it does test for is your levels of magnesium, most people have plenty of magnesium in their soil. So most people really don't need Epsom salts. A lot of people who add Epsom salts or use it in their yard for fertilizer or some other use, it's not really needed. There's some other kind of underlying problem that has a different solution. Epsom
palm for palms. People use it a lot for palms.
Yes, and if your palms are deficient in magnesium, it's a quick magnesium boost. But like I said, it dissolves very quickly and washes away very quickly. So it's a very quick boost. It's not long-term, it's not slow release magnesium.
And your palm usually, needs more than just the magnesium. It also needs manganese which is a minor element. It's better to get a palm special fertilizer that is, created to give it all its needs.
Sure, quality palm fertilizer is going to have magnesium in a slow release form and all the other nutrients and micronutrients palms need, because there's about 10 of them
Right.
that palms need, and Epsom salts only give them one, so it's not going to fix your whole problem. So as a general rule, Epsom salts really only have limited use in the garden. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's probably not going to fix what your real problem is. Now,
don't rely on your lawn fertilizer. Don't go get your lawn fertilizer to say, I'll just use this on the palm trees. Lawn fertilizers are heavy in nitrogen. Palm trees despise nitrogen. So,
well, they do need a certain amount of nitrogen, but
they don't need, not as much as your lawn.
It has to be balanced with the potassium. So it has to be, the two of them have to be in the right levels.
Right.
Lawn fertilizer is just way too heavy on nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And it could kill a palm tree within a couple years if you keep fertilizing with lawn fertilizer. But you know why plants need magnesium and why a shortage of magnesium generally makes the leaves yellow? Although there's a lot of things that can make leaves yellow, a shortage of magnesium is one of them. If you look online, if you Google a chlorophyll molecule, chlorophyll is a huge molecule and it has tons of nitrogen and hydrogen in it. I know it has carbon in it also. Do you know what's at the very, very center of a chlorophyll molecule?
The nucleus.
No, it's an atom of magnesium. So magnesium is essential for a plant to make chlorophyll. So not enough magnesium, not enough chlorophyll, hence yellow leaves.
And people would automatically think either nitrogen or iron if they saw yellow leaves.
Shortage of nitrogen can lead to yellow leaves. Shortage of sulfur turns leaves kind of a weird, different kind of yellow. Bad shortage of nitrogen turns leaves actually white-ish. Too much water can lead to root damage and root rot, and that makes the leaves yellow. So there's a lot of things that can make leaves yellow, one of which would be a shortage of magnesium, which can be solved with Epsom salts.
Huh.
So don't believe Facebook when they say that Epsom salts are the magic cure-all, because they're generally not. It maybe it's, required, but probably not the solution for that specific problem.
Don't believe Facebook for a lot of things. People tend to want to ask, these neighborhood groups questions about gardening. And boy, you're going to find all kind of interesting answers. You have a gardening group, don't you? Bill?
Yes, we do. And oh my gosh, some of the things I see on Facebook on the gardening groups. And it starts with somebody, thank you for letting me join the group. I just moved here. All of you are so smart and experienced. I have a palm tree with yellowing leaves. What do I do? And the advice is just all over the place.
Yes.
I took a screenshot of one thread and I still have it in my computer somewhere. I use it for Master Gardener training. And this was somebody asked a question about their St. Augustine lawn. And they said, my lawn is declining, it looks bad, dead spots, this and that. Somebody or my neighbor, somebody told me it has a disease, what could it be and what do I do? So this big long thread, and a few people did say it could be take all root rot. Ding, they won a point for coming up with the correct answer. Other people picked other diseases, which it could be, but probably not. I don't know if anybody recommended using a fungicide on it or not, which would help, but it's not the solution to take all root rot. Caring for it properly is the long-term solution. But somebody recommended using cinnamon, because cinnamon does have fungicidal properties, and people who raise orchids will take fresh cuttings off their orchid that they're going to root and put powdered cinnamon on it, It does help protect it against fungal diseases. It's not an absolute 100% cure-all, but it helps and it doesn't hurt.
Well, how much cinnamon would you need for your lawn, though?
How do you apply cinnamon to your entire front lawn? Number one, you're going to be at Sam's buying all the cinnamon they have in the great big packages. Number two, you're going to have by far the best smelling yard in the world.
It's going to smell like Christmas at your house.
Are you making French toast or something? What is this? I'm thinking. And number three, to the best of my knowledge, cinnamon is not an appropriate control for take-all root rot. I don't even know if it's going to have any impact or effect on it. My guess is it won't. Will it kill your grass? Probably not. I don't. Maybe if you use too much cinnamon, it might burn it. I'm not sure. I don't know if any researcher has had the free time and money to actually take a close look at that. But some of the answers and suggestions are just, cringeworthy.
One of the questions I saw in one of these groups, just Spring Hill group or whatever, was, and it was a legitimate question, I've noticed it too, a lot of crepe myrtles are not blooming that much this year. Mine is. It took a while, but now it is. But mine lives where it shouldn't. It lives kind of on the edge of my drain field, which I'm not recommending, but that just happens to be where it is. And it is one of the pink colored ones. I have noticed the white ones, the older ones, the less hybridized ones, those nashets, they aren't blooming that much. But there were all kinds of advice and a whole lot of, you must severely prune it advice, which is exactly the opposite of what UF tells people. I think it's just a mixture of the drought that we had and then the heavy rains. It's just not a profusely blooming year for crepe myrtles.
But they seem to flower the most later on this summer, like August-ish, and it is July 8th right now, so maybe it's just a little bit too early.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the dry weather this spring put them a little bit behind schedule, but I'm sure there were people on Facebook saying use coffee grounds, don't use coffee grounds. I'm sure somebody said to use Epsom salts.
Yeah, and that wouldn't even bother me as much as you have to cut it way back. No. Your boss, Jim Davis, did a experiment with 3 crepe myrtles in his yard. He severely hat-racked one. He moderately pruned another, like the way that we tell people to do so. And he left one, he didn't do anything at all to it. And the one that produced the most blooms was that middle one that he moderately pruned.
Yeah.
And that is what I did. The year before last, I let it go. I didn't prune it at all. And it actually had less blooms, but this year I did the moderate, pruning, and it's blooming profusely right now. But I have noticed around town, especially the white ones, just aren't. So
yeah, and Sid posted that her big crepe myrtle is just getting started, and she doesn't prune it, and she thinks it was the drought too. And it was peaking in flowers July 11th last year, so we're still a little bit early. Right. So don't think that your crepe myrtle needs immediate attention because there's something horribly wrong because it's not blooming profusely today. Just patience is your friend.
Crepe myrtles are very easy plants. They're tough.
They are. And if you have them growing and you just never prune it, that's fine. It doesn't hurt it.
No. And we have a video we took several years ago to tell you the proper way to prune a crepe myrtle. So the purple one is budding too, and that's in Broward. So see, that was slow coming along as well. I think it was just how dry. We had 0 rain in May. I think that had a lot to do with it. So they just sort of went to sleep for a little bit, and they're catching up now.
Boy, Cindy and Don Taylor said theirs bloomed so much this year, they were so big they actually broke the branches. The only thing they did different is cut it back because I was actually going to cut it down.
See, that would happen. That is exactly what happens if you severely cut it back. You get that basal cell whippy new growth that hasn't had a chance to be the strong wood, and it will produce bigger blooms but fewer, and especially when it gets wet, it will bring them down. So
Yeah, I'll hang it.
One branch trying to do that already. So, and that's just because we've had so much rain. It's like wanting to touch the ground. Oh, and speaking of that, I have a vine, who knows where it came from, that grows up my crepe myrtle. And I was excited at first because when it bloomed on it, it looks like a Dutchman's pipe. But of course I was suspicious, like, yeah, I didn't put you there. And I looked it up, and there is an invasive vine type of Dutchman's pipe. So now I'm always having to cut that back. Wants to strangle out my poor crepe myrtle too.
Thought you were going to say that you had an air potato.
And no.
Mine is back. My air potato from last year is coming up again behind the air conditioner unit out in the backyard.
Uh-huh.
Thanks to contaminated compost from Oro Gardens.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. That's okay. I leave it there for research purposes. I need to see how quickly air potato beetles find it this year. Last year, it came up. I noticed it, and I swear it was like a week later there were beetles on it. But this year, they're not on it yet. I'm just going to wait and see when they do get on it. It's growing like crazy, of course.
Mm-hmm. Well, and actually, we just had our septic cleaned out, and he didn't bother the crepe myrtle at all. So as long as we don't have major problems with the septic tank, it hasn't been an issue yet. And the crepe myrtle roots aren't that deep, but it probably should not have been put where it is.
Yeah, you need to be careful what's in or on top of or very close to a drain field that doesn't have big roots that are going to get tangled in your pipes and block drainage.
Who likes that fertilizer?
And that's steady water.
Yes.
So if you need to get in touch with Lily, there is her email also.
See that, and you just hit upon that. I mean, it wasn't affected by the drought because it was getting watered. Yeah.
And don't forget that our master gardeners here in her native county do have a nursery where they sell native and Florida-friendly plants, and they don't sell air potato vines or invasive Dutchman pipes or anything like that. We're very careful that we don't sell invasives or plants that are not going to do well here in Central Florida. Things are just going to, get bugs or die or freeze in the winter, and then you're going to get frustrated. They sell a good selection of plants, and they are open normally Wednesday mornings and Saturday mornings from 8:30 in the morning until 11, as long as there are no hurricanes coming.
They're there then, they're just not open. They're there scattering around, trying to protect the nursery. Huh?
Exactly. They were closed yesterday because of the hurricane. So.
Right. And they're probably there, or will be, to put everything back out now.
They're going out there on Friday morning to put everything back up. They have to pull a lot of plants down off the tables. They were worried about the high winds. Apparently, the nursery did not sustain any damage.
Oh, that's, yeah.
But they still had to put everything back in
They
place.
also use little, if any, chemicals on their plants. So.
What they sell has very, very few pest problems, and occasional caterpillar or bug or whatever. Nothing bad enough that you need to actually grab a sprayer and do anything with it.
Because they have such a diversity of plants out there, the biological control helps you.
It helps, and if you're running a greenhouse that's 100, a huge greenhouse that's filled with any one given plant,
like poinsettias, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very different than growing small numbers of a wide variety of plants.
Mhm.
Okay, if anybody has any last minute questions there, please go ahead and throw them in. And I'm not seeing any emails. I do see we have 12 people on here today, so thank you very much. We always get a pretty steady turnout. And like I said, feel free to, the best way to get in contact with me or have me answer any question is send me an email and try to describe what your situation is and send lots of pictures. More pictures are better. That makes it a lot easier to figure out what you have growing and what you have going on. And if I don't know what the answer is, I send it to Lily.
Oh,
And if
we have
you
one more
don't know what it
question.
is, we send it to other people until we do figure it out.
We have one more question from Lee.
Okay, last minute quick questions here. Lee has an edible passion fruit vine that flowers, but no fruits for 2 years. There's a lot of varieties of passion fruit that are really touchy and difficult to get an actual harvest from. And I'm not an expert on the different varieties. I know there is one variety, and it even grows as far north as Ocala or further north. And it is not preferred or liked very much by the Gulf fritillary caterpillar, believe it or not. You generally don't get the caterpillars feeding on it. And it does produce the edible passion fruit, but I'm not sure. I will find out because I know a person research on that up in the Ocala area and has a bunch of it growing. He gets a great harvest. And I asked him, well, what do you do about the caterpillars? He said, I don't get any. So they don't prefer this variety of passion vine. Passion vine, I guarantee you, there is a certain way to prune it in the winter and prune it back. So if you look online for under University of Florida passion vine, I'm sure they have fact sheets and a lot of really good information about how to manage different varieties to get the fruit. Because I would have it grown in the neighbor's backyard and it would spill over the fence into my backyard, and I just left it for the caterpillars. I'm not trying to get any fruit off of it.
I do, but I put mine out, and it's so small, it's having a hard time getting big because the caterpillars keep eating it.
Yeah. They keep knocking it back.
Yeah.
Lee said his caterpillars love it, so.
Yeah, the Gulf fritillaries and the zebra longwings do love it. It's the host plant for both of them. I know, and I never can keep track. One of them likes it in the shade, and the other one likes the sunnier parts of it. So, and the zebra longwing is our state butterfly. You're writing yourself a note there, huh?
Yes, I am. You figured it out, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll find out some information on passion vines, and I may even try to get him on here as a guest next week or sometime soon.
Cool.
So we will look into the passion vine, the fruiting one, and I know
I had my little passion vine. I was first blaming the caterpillars, but then it's so small. It was only this big, maybe that big, and I noticed like the entire top half was taken off. I'm like, that's not a caterpillar. And then I found the suspect. He got his way right over back to it again. So I had to barricade the passion vine. He was about this big, a little juvenile tortoise in my yard.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So yes, it's worth it because my yard is there for the wildlife. But I was like, can we let it grow, please? So.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate you tuning on and following us and asking us all these great questions and keeping me on my toes every Thursday morning. Mm-hmm. And I will be back here again next Thursday. Lily will not be.
Yeah. I'll be in Virginia.
Okay. Well, enjoy your vacation, Lily. But I'll be here and I'll see if I can't drag somebody else on for the morning and to handle all your questions. So thank you, Lee. We'll see you again next week. So with that, everybody take care and have a great weekend and watch out for hurricanes. And we will see you back here again next Thursday. See you then.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.